Every time you explain yourself, you surrender leverage. Tests aren't curiosity, they're dominance probes. The moment you reveal your core, you invite control, containment, and quiet execution. You think people are trying to understand you. They're trying to position you. Every social interaction is an invisible interrogation, not with bright lights and metal tables, but with smiles, pauses, subtle tone shifts, and loaded questions disguised as interest. Why do you think that? What's your plan? What happened between you two? Harmless on the surface, strategic underneath. Most men fail here, because they assume conversation is connection. It isn't. It's calibration. When someone asks you about your beliefs, your goals, your weaknesses, your past mistakes, they're mapping your psychological terrain. They're identifying fault lines, measuring emotional volatility, testing loyalty thresholds, assessing ego sensitivity. Not consciously, perhaps, but instinctively. Human beings are wired for hierarchy. Before trust, before friendship, before alliance, there is evaluation. And you keep volunteering data. The first lens shift you must accept is this: curiosity is rarely neutral. Information creates asymmetry. The one who knows more holds more. The one who reveals more bleeds leverage. Power is not loud, it accumulates silently through controlled access. When someone tests you, they are not looking for truth, they're looking for reaction. Reaction exposes structure. Do you defend yourself quickly? You fear judgment. Do you over-explain? You crave approval. Do you get irritated? You protect insecurity. Do you joke it off? You avoid confrontation. Every reaction is diagnostic. You think you're answering a question. They're analyzing your nervous system. This is why powerful men appear difficult to read. It isn't arrogance, it's containment. They understand that once someone maps your emotional triggers, you become predictable. Predictability is control. Control is vulnerability. The invisible interrogation operates through 3 channels. First, emotional probing. Statements designed to poke identity. You don't seem like the ambitious type. You're too quiet. That's not very realistic. These are not observations, they're hooks. The goal is to see if you'll defend your image. The moment you rush to correct them, you hand over your pressure points. Second, boundary testing. Small acts of disrespect, interruptions, delayed responses, last-minute cancellations, slight dismissals. These are micro-experiments. They measure tolerance. If you absorb them without recalibration, you signal low enforcement capacity. You reveal your hierarchy position without realizing it. Third, value extraction. They encourage you to share your plans, your strategy, your emotional state. Why? Because once declared, your moves can be anticipated. Anticipation neutralizes advantage. A revealed strategy is a weakened strategy. Understand this clearly. The world does not reward transparency. It rewards control. You were conditioned to believe openness builds connection. In reality, unfiltered openness builds leverage for others. The most dangerous man in any room is the least explained one, not because he hides insecurity, but because he understands timing. Revelation is a currency. Spend it carelessly, and you go bankrupt. Spend it strategically, and you dictate terms. The invisible interrogation is constant, at work, in relationships, among friends, even within family. Humans are constantly asking one question beneath all others: where do you stand in the hierarchy? And you answer without words, through tone, through pace, through emotional steadiness, through what you refuse to disclose. Here is the shift you must make. Stop trying to be understood. Start observing who is trying to understand you and why. When someone tests you, silence is not weakness. Delayed response is not insecurity. Neutral expression is not passivity. They are shields.
The man who explains himself excessively is negotiating from below. The man who selects what is known about him is negotiating from above. You don't owe anyone access to your internal structure. Once someone sees how you think, what you fear, what you desire, they can design around you and design against you. From this point forward, assume every test is a scan. Your job is not to pass it. Your job is to remain unreadable. Testing is not random. It is instinctive hierarchy engineering. Every group, workplace, social circle, relationship, family, organizes itself around dominance gradients, not necessarily physical dominance, informational dominance, emotional stability, boundary enforcement, strategic patience. Testing is the tool used to measure those variables. When someone tests you, they are running a dominance diagnostic. They want to know three things. How emotionally reactive are you? How dependent are you on approval? How firmly do you enforce boundaries? Your answers are not verbal. They are physiological. A raised voice, a defensive explanation, a nervous laugh, a long justification. Each one is data. The core psychological mechanism behind testing is simple. Pressure reveals structure. Apply slight discomfort and watch what surfaces. Insecure men compensate. Approval seekers explain. Aggressive men overcorrect. Stable men regulate. That regulation is threatening because dominance is not about aggression. It's about non-reactivity under evaluation. When someone lightly insults you and you rush to prove them wrong, you confirm their superiority frame. You accepted their premise. You entered their courtroom. You tried to win their approval. That's submission disguised as confidence. Testing escalates when compliance is detected. If you tolerate small disrespect, the system upgrades the test. If you over-explain once, deeper probing follows. If you reveal emotional wounds, they are bookmarked for future leverage. Why? Because humans unconsciously optimize for advantage. A man who can be emotionally steered can be socially steered. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Many people don't test you because they hate you. They test you because they don't respect you yet. Respect is not granted through likability. It is granted through stability under pressure. When you reveal too much during a test, you communicate internal instability. Even if your words are confident, the need to defend yourself signals fragility. Strong structures do not tremble during inspection. This is why powerful individuals rarely clarify themselves under provocation. They don't correct every assumption. They don't chase misunderstandings. They allow misinterpretation when it serves positioning, because control is maintained by limiting access. The dominance mechanism operates in layers. Layer 1, frame control. Who defines reality? If someone labels you, you're too emotional, you're not serious, you're inexperienced, and you react within their frame, they control the narrative. The dominant individual either ignores the frame or replaces it without emotional engagement. Layer 2, emotional steering. If someone can predict your reaction, they can steer your decisions. Push a button, get a response. That is power. The moment you become predictable, you become programmable. Layer 3, information asymmetry. The one who asks questions while revealing nothing gains strategic advantage. They observe patterns while remaining undefined. Undefined entities cannot be targeted effectively. Testing is essentially a search for your operating manual. Once they know your triggers, your values, your ambitions, your insecurities, they know how to negotiate, pressure, or manipulate you. And most men hand over the manual willingly. Why? Because they confuse authenticity with exposure. Authenticity is internal alignment. Exposure is external leakage. You can be authentic without being accessible. You can be real without being readable. Dominance is not loud. It is measured in withheld reaction. When someone tests you and you remain composed, not passive, not defensive, simply unmoved, you disrupt their diagnostic process. They receive no clean data, no emotional spike, no insecurity signal. Ambiguity creates caution. Caution creates respect. Understand this. The goal of testing is to reduce uncertainty about you, to box you into a predictable category. The moment you allow that classification too early, you shrink. The sovereign man delays classification. He answers selectively. He reacts minimally. He observes intensely. Testing will never stop. It will only become more subtle as your perceived status rises. But once you understand the mechanism, you stop playing to win approval. You start playing to maintain leverage.
Not everyone tests you the same way. Predators adapt. Some smile, some provoke, some pretend to care, but the objective remains constant. Extract structure, measure dominance, locate weakness. If you cannot identify the type, you will misread the threat. There are 3 primary testers you will encounter repeatedly. Learn them, recognize them, neutralize them. 1. The subtle provoker. This one hides behind humor and casual remarks. You've changed. You sure you can handle that? Relax, I'm just joking. He doesn't attack directly. He nudges, slight dismissals, mild contradictions, playful disrespect. His method is psychological needling. The subtle provoker is searching for ego fragility. If you laugh nervously, you signal compliance. If you defend yourself seriously, you signal insecurity. If you escalate emotionally, you signal instability. He wins when you react. His strategy is low-risk dominance probing. If you tolerate the micro-disrespect, he increases intensity. If you overreact, he frames you as sensitive. Either way, he gathers data. Your mistake would be engaging at the emotional level. The correct response is calibrated indifference, neither amusement nor irritation, a steady gaze, a short reply, or none. Predators lose interest when their hooks find no flesh. 2. The authority challenger. This one is more direct. He questions your decisions publicly, interrupts you mid-sentence, pushes back aggressively in meetings or conversations, tests your composure in front of others. His objective is simple: reposition you in the hierarchy. If you justify excessively, you shrink. If you become defensive, you validate his challenge. If you attack impulsively, you appear threatened. The authority challenger thrives on destabilization. He wants visible friction, because dominance in group dynamics is often determined by who remains stable under confrontation. Most men collapse here. They either become overly diplomatic or unnecessarily hostile. Both reactions expose internal imbalance. The sovereign response is controlled compression, slow speech, minimal words, no emotional leakage, clear boundary enforcement without performance. You don't argue to win, you assert to close. The moment he realizes you cannot be destabilized publicly, he recalibrates. Dominance isn't declared, it is demonstrated through nervous system control. 3. The intimate extractor. This one is the most dangerous. He doesn't provoke, he invites. He asks about your childhood, your fears, your failed relationships, your ambitions. He creates a safe psychological atmosphere and encourages vulnerability. This predator weaponizes trust. The intimate extractor gathers your internal blueprint, not to understand you, but to anticipate you. He learns your emotional triggers. He identifies your validation needs. He detects your future plans before they materialize. Then, at the right moment, he uses that knowledge for leverage, subtle manipulation, strategic timing, social positioning. Men fall for this one because it feels like connection, but connection without boundaries is exposure.
The mistake here is believing depth equals safety. The more someone knows about your fears, the easier it becomes to pressure you. The more someone knows about your goals, the easier it becomes to compete with you quietly. Strategic opacity must extend even into intimacy. You can share without revealing leverage points. You can connect without surrendering your blueprint. Understand this clearly. Not all testers are enemies. Some are unconscious participants in hierarchy formation, but their intentions are irrelevant. The mechanism remains. Every test is a search for leverage. The subtle provoker measures ego. The authority challenger measures stability. The intimate extractor measures internal architecture. If you respond emotionally to any of them, you feed the system. Powerful men are not paranoid. They are selective. They do not overshare. They do not overdefend. They do not overreact. They observe patterns and adjust positioning accordingly. The moment you can identify the predator type in real time, you detach from the emotional layer of the interaction. And once detached, you become dangerous, because predators rely on reflex, and you are no longer reflexive. History does not remember the transparent. It remembers the unreadable. Men who survived power struggles were not the loudest, not the most expressive, not the most emotionally authentic. They were the most controlled, the most calculated, the most selectively visible. Opacity is not secrecy for its own sake. It is strategic survival. Across courts, battlefields, corporations, and political regimes, one pattern repeats. The man who reveals his full intention too early loses leverage. The man who speaks last shapes outcomes. Open ambition invites resistance. Declared strategy invites sabotage. Emotional exposure invites exploitation. The illusion modern men swallow is this: visibility equals strength. History disagrees. Power consolidates in silence. When rulers projected certainty while concealing doubt, they remained stable. When generals misled opponents about their real movements, they won before battle began. When statesmen withheld their true positions until negotiation matured, they dictated terms. Opacity buys time. Time creates advantage. Understand human nature. People grow uneasy around what they cannot categorize. An undefined man cannot be easily attacked because his limits are unknown, his reactions are unpredictable, his alliances are unclear, his thresholds are invisible. Uncertainty forces caution. Caution elevates status. When you reveal everything, your values, your plans, your fears, your next move, you remove uncertainty. You become manageable, predictable, containable. History punishes predictability. Even in personal dynamics, the same principle applies. The man who declares unconditional loyalty too early loses negotiating position. The man who confesses his entire emotional dependency becomes replaceable. The man who broadcasts his ambitions invites quiet competition. The opaque man advances quietly. He does not announce his growth. He does not explain his strategy. He does not correct every misconception. He lets others underestimate him when it serves him. Underestimation is camouflage. Many powerful figures cultivated controlled mystique, not because they were insecure, but because mystique disrupts opposition planning. If your rivals cannot read your timing, they cannot coordinate against you effectively. Revealed intent creates alignment against you. Hidden intent creates hesitation. Hesitation creates dominance windows. And here is the darker truth. The more virtuous you appear, the more aggressively people test you. Transparency signals moral predictability. Moral predictability signals constraint. Constraint signals exploitable boundaries. If you always explain yourself, always justify, always clarify, you communicate one thing: I need you to understand me.
Need is leverage. The opaque individual needs nothing publicly. He can tolerate misunderstanding. He can survive misinterpretation. He can allow others to speculate because he understands something fundamental. Reputation is shaped over time, not defended in every moment. Men who collapse under false accusations expose fragile identity. Men who rush to defend every narrative reveal dependency on perception. But the historically dominant man chooses when to correct and when to remain silent. Silence is not weakness, it is informational denial. When you refuse to clarify under provocation, you create informational scarcity. Scarcity increases perceived value. Perceived value increases influence. This is why courts were filled with whispers, not confessions. Why generals used deception, not declarations. Why negotiators reveal little until leverage peaks. Opacity is a weapon, not to deceive recklessly, but to prevent strategic vulnerability. The modern environment pressures you towards constant self-expression. Share your thoughts, declare your beliefs, reveal your story, explain your trauma, announce your plans. It's a surveillance culture disguised as authenticity, and you comply willingly. Every public declaration reduces maneuverability. Every exposed emotion becomes a reference point. Every disclosed strategy becomes targetable. History favors the man who understands pacing. Revelation must be timed, not impulsive. Access must be earned, not.
Knowing the threat is useless if you still react. This chapter is not about understanding testing. It is about weaponizing restraint. Strategic non-revelation is not silence for its own sake. It is controlled output. You do not refuse to speak. You refuse to leak. Most men think power is in what they say. It is in what they decline to say. When tested, your first impulse is to clarify, to correct the narrative, to explain your position. That impulse is ego defending identity. Kill it. Instead, apply the first rule: delay response. Speed signals pressure. Pressure signals insecurity. When someone probes, slow your tempo. Let the silence stretch. Make them feel the weight of their own question. Most people are uncomfortable in extended pauses. They fill them. They reveal themselves. You do not need to answer immediately. Time is dominance. Second rule: answer without exposure. Direct questions do not require direct access. If asked about your plans, respond in abstractions. If asked about your emotions, respond in principles. If asked about your position, respond with controlled ambiguity. Example: what's your next move? I'm exploring a few options. Nonspecific, closed, calm. You have answered, you have revealed nothing. Strategic men speak in outlines, not blueprints. Third rule: neutralize frame attacks. When someone attempts to define you, you're too quiet, you're not ambitious, you always overthink, do not argue inside their frame. Instead, detach. A simple, interesting perspective, or that's one way to see it. No defense, no correction, no emotional spike. You have refused the courtroom. Fourth rule: control emotional access. Your internal state is not public property. If something excites you, contain it. If something angers you, regulate it. If something hurts you, process it privately. Emotion displayed under testing becomes a map of your pressure points. Non-revelation does not mean suppression, it means discipline. You process internally, not perform externally. Fifth rule: selective transparency. You will share, but on your terms. Disclosure must serve positioning. If disclosure increases leverage, strengthens alliance, or creates strategic alignment, release it deliberately. If it merely satisfies emotional impulse, withhold it.
Transparency without intention is weakness. Sixth rule, reward respect, not curiosity. When someone approaches with genuine respect, not probing dominance, not extracting leverage, calibrated openness can be used as investment. But most men reveal before respect is proven. Reverse the order. Respect first, access second. Until then, maintain controlled opacity. Now understand the psychological shift required. You must detach from the need to be fully known. The urge to explain comes from fear of misjudgment, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing status. But the man who fears misinterpretation is already externally controlled. Strategic non-revelation requires internal sovereignty. You can tolerate people forming incomplete narratives about you. You can allow mild underestimation. You can endure silence without filling it, because you understand something critical. Information is leverage. Every time you reveal your internal architecture, you reduce asymmetry. Every time you react emotionally, you confirm structure. Every time you defend yourself unnecessarily, you signal dependency. Stop trying to win conversations. Start managing positioning. Testing loses power when it receives no clean data. And once others realize you cannot be mapped easily, they approach with caution. Caution is the beginning of respect. Strategic non-revelation is not about hiding who you are. It is about deciding who earns access. That decision alone shifts hierarchy. This is where most men fail. Not because they lack strategy, but because they crave recognition. You want to be seen correctly. You want your intentions acknowledged. You want your depth understood. That desire is the final leash. As long as you need understanding, you will reveal yourself under pressure. Testing works because it hooks into this need. When someone mislabels you, you rush to correct it. When someone questions your motives, you defend them. When someone misunderstands your silence, you clarify it. Why? Because you cannot tolerate being misperceived. That is weakness. Not moral weakness, structural weakness. If your identity depends on external comprehension, then your behavior will always bend toward explanation. And explanation is exposure. The sovereign man does not require constant validation of his internal world. He allows misinterpretation when it serves positioning. He allows others to think he is less ambitious, less emotional, less strategic, because he does not perform identity maintenance for spectators. The death required here is psychological. You must kill the version of yourself that needs applause for integrity. Understand something brutal. Most people do not care about your true intentions. They care about how your actions affect their position. They filter you through utility and threat assessment. Explaining yourself will not elevate you in their hierarchy. Stability will. The moment you stop correcting every narrative about you, something shifts. First, anxiety rises. You feel the urge to clarify, to restore accuracy. Resist it. Let the incomplete narrative exist. Let them wonder. Because once you remove the need to be understood, you remove the lever others use to move you. This is identity replacement. Old identity. I am a good man. I must be seen as fair, honest, transparent. New identity. I am a sovereign man. My interior is private property. Goodness seeks validation. Sovereignty seeks control. You were conditioned to believe that clarity equals trustworthiness, that explaining your heart makes you strong. In power environments, it makes you predictable. Predictable men are managed. Opaque men are respected. When you kill the need to be understood, you become emotionally unmapped. Criticism no longer hooks you. Assumptions no longer agitate you. Tests no longer provoke defense. You respond based on strategy, not ego. And here is the paradox. The less you demand understanding, the more people project depth onto you. Silence is interpreted as control. Restraint is interpreted as strength. Ambiguity is interpreted as complexity. But you cannot fake this. If you are silently seething, you are still controlled. If you are withholding while craving recognition, you are still dependent. True replacement means you genuinely do not require external clarity. You know your code. You follow your standard. You act according to your internal hierarchy. Whether others grasp it is irrelevant. This detachment is dangerous, because once you no longer need to defend your character, you free cognitive energy for positioning. You stop arguing. You stop explaining. You stop negotiating your image. You operate, and people feel it. They sense that pressing you yields nothing emotional, no drama, no defensive speech, no attempt to restore reputation in the moment. When a man cannot be emotionally baited, testing decreases. Not because people become kinder, but because the leverage disappears. Death is required for power stability. Kill the approval seeker. Kill the explainer. Kill the man who fears being misunderstood. Replace him with the operator who decides access. You are not here to be fully known. You are here to remain uncontained.
If you forget everything else, remember this. The man who talks too much eventually kneels. Not physically, strategically. Silence is not absence. It is compression. It is stored force. It is denied access. Most men believe power is demonstrated through articulation, through clever rebuttals, through sharp dominance displays. That is amateur power. Elite power is reduction. Fewer words, fewer explanations, fewer visible reactions, because every additional word increases exposure. Strategic silence operates on 3 levels. First, tactical silence. When tested, you do not rush to fill space. Silence forces the other party to confront their own intent. Most testers rely on rhythm, question, reaction, adjustment. If you break the rhythm, they lose calibration. A steady gaze and no immediate answer destabilizes more effectively than aggression. Second, informational silence. You do not narrate your progress. You do not broadcast internal shifts. You do not telegraph future moves. You let results appear without warning. Surprise is leverage. Announced ambition invites resistance. Silent execution creates shock. Third, emotional silence. Your internal storms are not public events. You do not display every irritation. You do not externalize every disappointment. You regulate, decide, and move. Emotional broadcasting invites targeting. Now understand the final warning. The world rewards the man who seems accessible until it exploits him. It praises transparency until it uses the information. It encourages openness until it maps your pressure points. If you reveal yourself to those who test you, they will classify you. Once classified, you are predictable. Once predictable, you are manageable. Once manageable, you are positioned beneath. Hierarchy solidifies around those who can be read easily. The unpredictable, emotionally regulated man hovers outside clean categorization. That position creates unease. Unease creates respect. But this path is not comfortable. You will be misunderstood. You will be called distant, arrogant, unclear. Accept it, because the alternative is worse, being emotionally steered by those who probe you. Strategic silence is not coldness for its own sake. It is sovereignty protection. You decide when to reveal. You decide what to disclose. You decide who earns access.
Not the tester, not the provocateur, not the curious opportunist. You. From this point forward, treat every probe as a scan, every loaded question as leverage extraction, every attempt to define you as hierarchy calibration, and respond with reduction. Speak less, reveal less, react less, observe more. The elite operate in controlled ambiguity. They do not need to correct every false narrative. They do not rush to be understood. They do not explain their blueprint to spectators. They move, and the world adjusts around them. Now the choice is simple. Continue performing transparency for approval, or step into strategic opacity and let others adjust to your silence. Which man are you going to be?